Here in section 31, we're going to continue our conversation on unit or quantity, but also add in the columns because they influence the assessment of duty as well. This section is going to be quite visual in helping us to refine our expertise in these areas. What we're looking at here is out of chapter 64, which deals with footwear. We happen to be in 6402, and we didn't pick this randomly because footwear can be a little tricky from a duty assessment, from a valuation perspective, heavily influenced by the type of product itself, as well as the country of origin. So it helps us to illustrate our points around unit or quantity and the columns. Let's start at 6402 at the heading, Other Footwear, with outer soles and uppers of rubber or plastics. Let's go down to the first 8-digit legal classification, 6402-9980. It's other footwear valued over $6.50, but not over $12 a pair. The unit price from the vendor overseas plays a big part in this classification and the assessment of duties. Move to the right. In the general column for countries that have normal trade relations with the United States, a good illustration. 90 cents per pair, because that is indeed the unit of quantity, plus 20%. So if the particular footwear that was being imported was coming in from China, which falls under the general column, at $7 a pair, the duty would be 90 cents plus 20% on the $7. If, moving to the right to our special column, this particular classification of footwear came from Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Chile, etc., it would be free of duty. Other countries too, Mexico, Peru, Singapore. But below that, we'll notice 3.3 cents per pair plus 0.7% for PA. That's Panama. 27 cents a pair plus 6% from Colombia, and even higher, 90 cents a pair plus 20% coming out of Korea. Mainly because Korea is an advanced industrial society, and the United States wants to give a little bit of a break to these other countries that are still emerging, between quotation points, economies. This is just a good illustration of how the assessment of duties are influenced by the product itself and the country of origin. Moving to the right to column 2, Cuba and North Korea, not that anyone would be bringing in shoes from North Korea, but it's $1.58 a pair plus 35%. Essentially prohibitive. That's the whole point. If a company is in column 2, they're being punitively penalized by the U.S. government because they're on a blacklist, basically. General column, normal trade relations. Special column, countries we really like and want to help out. Column 2, not so much. Influenced by the product itself as expressed in its full legal and statistical classification. In this example, the actual unit cost of the footwear itself and the country of origin. Just a good illustration here. To go over a couple of other key points as it relates to the assessment of duties and the HTSUS structure, in the general notes on page 3, we find rates of duty for column 1. We saw this before. We're going to hit it again. We can go right down to 3A, rates of duty, rate of duty, column 1. Except as provided in subparagraph 4 of this paragraph, the rates of duty in column 1 are rates which are applicable to all products other than those of countries enumerated in paragraph B of this note. Column 1 is divided into 2 subcolumns, general and special. We know that. 3A2, the general subcolumn, sets forth the general or normal trade relation rates which are applicable to products of those countries. We've said this a number of times. This is where it's found in the HTSUS in General Notes 2. 3A3, the special subcolumn, reflects rates of duty under one or more special tariff treatment programs described in paragraph C, which we saw, and again, we're going to look at one more time because we like to be thorough. Column 1 is divided in 2. General for normal trade relations and special for countries that have special tariff treatment programs with the U.S. From a sourcing perspective, if we can, as importers, because some countries just don't make the products we're looking for. But if we can, find countries that are in the special column, because the duty rates are always going to be lower, if not totally duty-free. Let's have a look specifically at column 1. This time, out of Chapter 85, heading 8507, electric storage batteries at the 6-digit level, nickel-iron storage batteries. And moving down to our 10-digit legal classification, 850740.4000, of a kind used as the primary source of electrical power for electrically powered vehicles. Interesting. The unit or quantity is the number. How many batteries, basically? It's not dozen or kilos or anything like that. General column 3.4. And by the way, that 1 right next to it, underlined, that's making reference to a chapter note. That's what that means. We would have to read that. We're not going to do that here. If we brought in the same nickel-iron storage batteries from the countries that have special tariff treatment or duty-free treatment, we can see it would be free. Conversely, column 2, 40%, prohibitive to bring in this type of product from those column 2 countries. Moving down to illustrate further, 850750.0000, nickel metal hydride batteries. The unit or quantity is number and kilos at 3.4%. And the general, free, and special, and again 40% in column 2. One product we hear a lot about these days is lithium-ion batteries that oftentimes, when manufactured specifically for that purpose, go into cell phones. 850760.00, legal classification there, 3.4% with a reference to chapter note number 2. Would have to read that as well. We can see the product itself, its classification, unit or quantity, and general, special in column 1 or column 2 will make the determination about the assessment of duties based normally on the ad valorem value, a percentage of the value of the goods. We saw this already. We're going to see it again. Rates of duty column 2. The bad guy countries, Cuba and North Korea. No need to talk too much about that. We can just circle it real quick. But to run through again, in C, products eligible for special tariff treatment that fall in that special column. GSP, symbolized by A asterisk or A+. We've talked about a bunch of these. AU is Bahrain. Automotive Products Trade Act, that's a preferential duty program signified by the letter, uppercase letter B. Bahrain we talked about. C, we haven't mentioned much. Agreement on Trade in Civil Aircraft, specific to the aircraft industry. NAFTA, CA and MX, Chile, CL. African Growth and Opportunity Act, we talked a little bit about. That's D. And down the list we go. We as importers need to be checking if the products that we import or intend to import can be sourced in a country and the quantities and quality and price that we're looking for that fall under products eligible for special tariff treatment. Huge advantage there. Doesn't mean it can be done for a lot of different reasons. It's just a huge advantage. Quick note down the bottom right, we've said it verbally a couple of times. At the time of recording, NAFTA was still in place. About to be ratified by Congress, but not quite yet. Let's look at customs duties in the HTS structure, this time rates of duty column 2. We selected Chapter 54 of a heading 5407, which deals with woven fabrics of synthetic filament yarn, including woven fabrics obtained from materials of heading 5404. Let's go down to our legal classification at 8 digits, which is woven fabrics of synthetic filament yarn, but printed fabrics. It's a good illustration, not selected randomly, because again, we want to illustrate how products that are sourced from countries that fall under are super advantageous from a landed cost perspective. If sourced from countries out of the general column, that normal trade relations status, it's 14.9%. From any of these countries in the special column, Australia, Bahrain, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Israel, Jordan, Korea, on, it's duty-free. Conversely, in column 2, it's 81%. A stark difference, a good illustration. Let's wrap up this section with a supply chain perspective that drives home this point around assessing duties based on country of origin, duty rates, of course, and the sourcing function. Module 4 of this training program dealt with global sourcing and the many macro/micro considerations that importers must consider prior to making decisions about what countries to purchase goods from. During that module, considerable time was dedicated to sourcing's role in determining an item's landed cost and how country of origin impacts that calculation. Hopefully you remember that from Module 4. We've been talking about it for a couple of sections now, so it should be fresh in our minds. Second paragraph. As one can see from the structure of the HTSUS and how customs duties are assessed on a country-specific basis, that it is critical for importers to have an early window into the duties that are applied to specific goods coming from specific countries. Without that kind of early analysis, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to accurately calculate an item's landed costs. That statement, that paragraph, is unequivocal. In the U.S., country of origin matters from a duty rate perspective. If we don't know the duty rate specific to a country we're importing from, we're toast when it comes to putting together an accurate landed cost calculation. Last paragraph. For example, in the previous slide that covered woven fabrics of synthetic filament yarn, the duty rate in the general subcolumn was 14.9%, and in column 2, the rate was 81%. Conversely, if the same item was sourced from a country in the special subcolumn under column 1, places like Australia, Bahrain, Chile, and others, the duty rate would be 0. Needless to say, the tie-in between the sourcing function and country of origin considerations driven by the HTSUS are very real and financially significant. Enough said on that subject. When we come back, we're going to continue on with this idea of assessing values, tying it into the valuation of goods for payment of customs duties.